Hello, doer. Welcome to this AMA. My name is Jigar, and I'm a head of software engineering team at Odoo's office, Brisbane, California. To give you a little background about my role at Odoo, I and my team help implement Odoo for any business need that our customers and partner might have that Odoo cannot do out of the box. I and my team have experience working on a various size project ranging from one user to thousands of users across various industries. Today, I'll be your host for this AMA, and the goal of this EMA is to listen to community challenges that they face out there in the field and understand their questions. To help facilitate this AMA today, our event team has sent out a survey to collect community interest and the questions. And based on the responses that we have received, we have created a small presentation that briefly go over interest and then addresses all the questions that were brought up. So let's get started. So first, obviously, as I said, we will be going through the interest. So let's going through the interests of the community that we have received. So those are the interests that community has shown, and that those are the ones that we are going to talk about. Now, obviously, these subjects looks really large in the sense that they require their own separate training, presentations, or webinar to say. However, I'll try to focus on what are the things that are generally overlooked or underestimated or not given enough attention, that creates in a long run that creates a trouble and should be taken care up ahead, or should be paid attention when you're implementing a project. So obviously we'll start with the Odoo.sh best practices, then we'll go down customization, module development, and then we'll go to performance optimization in terms of interest. So let's get started. So first subject, Odoo.sh best practices. So obviously there is a lot of content available that our great Odoo team have created around the lines of Odoo.sh and how it is useful, what are the features, all those is available out there on the internet. So I'll skip that and I'll straight up jump to the some of the things that are important and are normally overlooked and are otherwise not given enough attention, and that we have experienced through the years working through the various projects. So I'm going to address them. So one of the obviously before I get started, let me switch to Odoo.sh project. So here's a great demo Odoo.sh project that I have prepared for this presentation today here. So let's get into the details. So obviously the first subject was setting up the GitHub branch protection rules. So obviously that is a little bit outside of the Odoo.sh itself, and this is one of the subject that is overlooked significantly on a most project that we see implemented by customer themselves or by partner. So what do I mean by setting up the GitHub rules and security rules? So when you start Odoo.sh project, obviously, as you know, by now you know that every project has the branches associated to them, and every branch has obviously GitHub history and everything associated to them. So let me get to the GitHub. So here's a GitHub project that we are using for this project. So obviously, as you would see, there are 4 branches, 1 in a production, 2 in a staging, and 1 in a development. So all those 4 branches is something that what you're looking here. So when I say setting up security and rules around the GitHub branches, so that means I'm referring to going to the settings of the GitHub, going into the branch rules and going to the rule set, or going to the branch and setting up the branch protection rules here. Now, this is one of the important things that should be set up ahead for the success of the project. Some of the things that we set up at Odoo every time when we implement a project are what you're looking on the screen, which is every merge in the production requires a pull before merging. So you cannot just merge anything in the production at will. Rather, it will require a review. So there has to be a pull request generated. There has to be approval of the pull request. Minimum one person, or however many person you feel fit needs to be approved, should be approving it. If there is any stale approval, that should be dismissed. Require conversation resolution before merging. So that means, let's say someone commented something or requested a change, and those changes has to be resolved before merging. That's one of the other thing. Requires linear histories. This is one of the most important thing and one of the most abused feature of a GitHub that we experience, which is history of the GitHub is not maintained in a right fashion. So what happens is there's a production branch, then a developer creates a branch from something that is not a production branch, and then there are more branches that is created from the other branch. that is not again forked from production. So at the end of the day, when you try to merge something, your history is going to be all laid out in a fashion that does not make sense. And when you try to look at the GitHub history, everything is sort of wired and tangled up and doesn't make sense. So to prevent all that, you want to obviously use this rule. Then restricts who can push to this branch without approval. So you can restrict who can, or you can set an exclusion rule who can actually merge to this branch. So this way, with restriction and with the approval, we are making sure that nothing gets into production just like that. Alongside that, obviously, other branches should also have a rule. For example, for staging, conversation resolution is required. For staging, you can say allow force pushes if you wish, allow deletion if you wish. You can set those rules for the staging. And so does for the development as well. You can set rules. So these rules are very much important in a long run of the successful implementation of the project. What ends up happening if you don't create this rule, that over the time your development team changes, your developer changes, your implementation team changes, and given that if these rules are not set up, then things will left and right keep changing, and the new developer will do things differently, which will do things which will negatively affect your project, or they will merge and push stuff to the project in a wrong fashion, which will end up creating a trouble for you. So to prevent all of that, it is always a good idea to set up a branch protection rules against every branch. The second subject that is most under, which is basically overlooked or not given enough attention, is a unit test. And because Odoo does offer CI/CD feature, so that means every commit that you do on a GitHub, Odoo.sh has a built-in run bot that every commit is automatically tested, all the test cases are run, and you are given with a database that is validated to make sure that nothing is broken. Now, obviously, recently that has changed a little bit, that which modules you want to install is something that you can modify through here. Or if you just want to test your module, you can only test your module. If you want to do full installation, you can do full installation. So this features from Odoo.sh will help you make sure that the features that you're working on, or anything that you're working on, doesn't break right away, or doesn't break by your commit, or integration testing across the module are consistently working. Now, why unit tests are important? So let's assume that you're working on a single project. You have a one single feature that you're developing. Now, if you have one single feature, it is quite possible that you may get away without unit test case, because you may not be affected by that one single development. But imagine your development starts to scale up, and there's a lot of development going on left and right across different apps. So for example, you started modifying sales, stock, purchase, manufacturing, website, and you have a bunch of modules that are not vertically stacked, but they are also horizontally stacked. Now, in this situation, if you do not have unit test case, it is very likely that some of the features of Odoo are going to be broken. And reason being, there is no unit test case written for the features that you are writing. And you can consistently ensure that nothing breaks in Odoo by writing unit test case. And Odoo has a very elaborate unit test case. We'll go into that little detail in the second section of the intros today. I'll briefly talk about that. But unit test cases are important, and it should be given enough attention when you are working on the development, and this should be addressed early on in the project implementation. And remember, the runbot feature that you have, that Odoo has, that is exactly what you are getting over here. Everything is tested against Odoo unit test case. So that means out of the box, all the test cases that Odoo has will be tested. And on top of that, any unit test case that you are going to write, Odoo will also assert that all those unit test cases are consistently going to execute and are going to produce a consistent result. To be clear, that at Odoo, our teams has a rule that you cannot merge your development into staging or into production unless your branch is not green. If your branch is not green, so that means your unit test cases are not successful. And if your unit test cases are not successful, that means your development is not doing what it's supposed to do. So not only all unit test cases has to work consistently, but your new unit test case that we are going to write will also have to perform to make sure that if the feature that we are developing consistently works and doesn't fail. There's one thing that you want to be mindful when you are writing a unit test cases, that Odoo has a lot of unit test case out of the box. And when you are modifying Odoo, so that means you are customizing Odoo to business need, it is quite possible that because you are introducing a new business logic, your unit test cases are going to fail, which are out of the box. So what do you do with those? Thankfully, Odoo unit test cases can be inherited, and those inherited unit test case is something that you are able to rewrite and able to modify, and you are able to make it adjusted to your changes that you are making. So that means doesn't matter if you are modifying something, your result is going to be consistent, and unit tests are going to produce a consistent result across. So unit test case is something that I would strongly advise writing and not skip them. Most projects that we see that are not implemented by Odoo has this situation where unit test cases are really not well written or not at all written, and down the line the project suffers. And when I say down the line, it's mainly when you are doing upgrade. That's where it hurts the most. So by not writing unit test case, probably you are saving cost today, but down the line in 2-3 years when you decide to upgrade, it's going to be a lot more expensive because no unit test case. So that means you don't know what your code is doing. So that means you have a lot more to figure out, and there is a lot of time that you will invest figuring that out. So to save all that hassle, it is always good idea to write unit test case upfront when you're implementing a project. Next, learn built-in Odoo.sh monitor and tools. So this is something that is obviously I'm talking in context of Odoo.sh, but obviously you might as well ask me, what if I'm self-hosted? So if you are self-hosted, then you must set up some kind of a monitoring tool. This is again one of the other thing that a lot of projects that I have experienced do not do, where they do not have any monitoring tool set up. They are just running the server, everything is going well, and a day comes where things are broken and there is some issue, something happened overnight, and you don't know what's going on and you need answers on that. And if you do not have a monitoring setup, then you don't have answers on them. Then all you have to do is maybe do a guesswork, maybe do some maybe you can go and ask hosting provider a question, they might have an answer, but that's about it, and you are done with it. But if you had a monitoring setup, then you will have option to really figure out what was wrong, what could have happened, what could you have done, or what could you do in the future based on the incident that was reported and the recorded. So obviously Odoo.sh comes with the inbuilt monitoring tool, which is what you are looking on the screen right now. So this is something that has significantly improved after version 19 release. So when we released version 19 during OXP, this features was released with that. So now your monitoring tool, which is a built-in Grafana to Odoo.sh, has a lot more statistic about your project. Some of the things that were not happening before are now available on Odoo.sh, which is how many logs you are getting, how many errors you are getting, for example, today, how many errors you are getting in the last 7 days, right? All those statistics before you had to manually go and look into the server log files, but now that has significantly changed. And now those statistics are straight away available on your monitoring tool. Obviously, I created this project very recently, so there is no data about last 24 hours or last 7 hours. But if you had a project that is running more than a day or two, you will have that statistics available. So let me quickly walk through these statistics. It will help you understand if you were to look back, because there is not much content available on this. Reason being, this is self-explanatory, but still it's a good idea to go through them. So system has basically three main parameter, which is your memory, CPU, and IO. So this is the three main statistics that what you are looking on the screen. Memory is obviously a server memory, how much memory is being consumed when something is happening. So this shows a cumulative memory. So remember, this is a cumulative memory, and this stacks up by however much amount of memory that got consumed by the server at given point in time. So let's assume that you have two workers, and two workers are consuming 400 megabytes of memory. Then this shows a cumulative graph altogether. Same goes for the CPU. So if you had a one worker So let's say if you have a two worker and your graph says 200%, so that means you are maxing out your two workers because you are going at the maximum capacity of the two workers, which is 200%, because it's a cumulative graph. IOPS is again IO to your disk. So however, whatever is the speed of IO is what you are looking at, and this is IO average and IO throughput. That's what you are looking at. And if you hover over, you are looking at a like how much cron time, how much HTTP time, how much Postgres time each second or each minute is consuming. Something to keep in mind that for 2 days you will have a granular detail up to 5 minutes. After 2 days, your granularity reduces to 1 hour, and you have that data available for a very long period of time. So if you had project running for 1 year, 2 years, something, you will have that statistics available significantly in that detail that you are looking at. So you can really break down those details in a greater detail over here. All right, let's move to the next section, which is HTTP. This is a very important one, which shows how many requests we are receiving and how many concurrent requests we are receiving at a given point in time. So you can hover over, and here I can see I had a 4 requests. Here I could see that I had like 0 requests given point in time, but then this one had 8 requests. So this shows the concurrent maximum request we were serving at the given point in time. And complement graph to the average request time is a response time. So what was the average response time of each request at a given point in time? That's what you are looking at. For again, this is an average, so through the different requests. And here's a request across the time frame that you're looking at. So this is average across 6 hours, which is 2.6 millisecond, and on an average requests were 0.04 requests, and we had about 505 total requests during that period that we have served. Next up, we have email. Obviously, how many incoming and outgoing emails that we have. And this is a statistics log which shows that what kind of a different errors that you had, like how many errors that you had, how many warnings that you had, how many info you had, how many failures you had, how many XML RPC or JSON RPC call you made in 24 hours, in 7 hours. Those data will be shown on this graph. Obviously, again, as I said, this is a very fresh project. I don't have much data, but if I had more data, definitely will see those statistics over here. And this shows the slowest route. So what is that is most slowest in last 24 hours, and what is that is most slowest for last 7 hours is shown here. Again, this is significant for your performance analysis. If there are performance issues that you are dealing, and if you want to find out what are the bottlenecks, this will give you the bottlenecks. So this monitoring tool is significantly helpful, and it's a great tool to have. Another section is the tools. Tool is a profiler tool. So this is where we do a code profiler. I'll talk a little bit more about this in the profiling performance section, where I will slightly talk more about the profiler. But this is a code profiler tool. This uses a PySpy in the background, and this does not add any performance overload when a monitoring is going on. Because this is an external process that is attached from outside, there is no overhead. So that means you are able to get without affecting your production server, you are able to get a statistics of what is going on the server. And this is a great tool to record what happened in a time when you're dealing with a performance tool. So these tools are very much important tool that you should be knowing, and you should be aware, and you should spend time learning about Odoo.sh. Another one which is great and one of the best misunderstood or underestimated, which is submodules. So what is submodule? So submodule is mainly more for partners to speak in the context that we are talking here, because generally submodule is where you are working with a partner. Partner has some modules that they are implementing for you, and these modules are proprietary module that partner is creating for you, and they are providing that for you, and you and partner have some kind of agreement where partner owns this code and partner is sharing this code for your project, and you're using that. And it is quite possible that a partner may not just provide you the code, rather they will add the code to your project using a submodule. So what does submodule do? Submodule is like a repository, and within your repository there is a pointer that points to another repository on the GitHub. And Odoo.sh is smart enough to work with this spider web of a module. So if you had a multiple submodules, and if you want to work with a multiple submodule, this is a great place, and this is a great tool to have. Submodule is another great tool for partners to prevent their code from being stolen or against the theft of the code. Because what you can definitely do is you can create a submodule of your code that is obviously is not very proprietary, that is not created for a customer, but it's a generic code that you are giving to the customer for using of the module or using of the feature. Then you will simply just say that I'm going to add my submodule, I'm going to install this piece of module or piece of business logic on a customer's database, and we will have a submodule setup where everything will be just a submodule, and it will just work, and customer will have that feature, and you will definitely be able to prevent yourself from accidental theft or code being stolen or situation like that. So submodule is definitely helpful. There is one thing that I would say that submodule is misunderstood because it's not well tried feature. Once you understand submodule, it's extremely easy. You just add a submodule. Every time when a feature is released on a submodule, you will need to a git pull of a submodule on a repository, and you just commit that on your project and you're good to go. So, and the another advantage of a submodule is a partner can continuously keep developing feature in the submodule repository without having any effect on a customer's project. So let's say there's a revision that we added to customer project, but still we are working on a feature on the submodule. So a submodule repository owner can continue working on a more feature in the time, whereas a customer is using a certain revision of your submodule. When your feature is ready on your submodule, you can just release that feature to the submodule, and then the parent repository that is using submodule will just pull it, and you're good to go. So using a submodule will be a significantly good feature to use, and it will be really handy. But again, it's something that you need to time learning. It will take less than 30 minutes to learn submodule, to be frank. And once you understand submodule, you're good to go. It's a knowledge that you build towards the future. So those are some of the things that we have seen over the years that are either misunderstood or not well utilized or are overlooked and are really, really good for your usage. Now I'll quickly talk about some of the features that we released in recent times of Odoo.sh. One of them, again, I said monitor is one of them. Obviously, there are some other features like obviously you can pin your version. This is one of the features that existed from the years in the production. Some of the other feature that you can do in the staging and in the production, which is mainly in the staging, which is you are able to set a default setting. So you are able to create a user default setting, or you are able to save a default setting. So let's say you remove default setting, then you are able to do features like, okay, I want to install my module. I want to do a full set like a run bot, because on a run bot everything is installed when you commit something. Or I just want to test my module. So if I had a my module and I just want to test my module, I'll just say my module here, and it will only test my module and it will not test anything else beyond your module. This way you will be able to save some time. Some of the other thing that you can do is unit test case exception and revision pinning. Obviously that is also available, and even for the dev branch you have the custom domain that you can reserve if you wish to. So, and obviously this is something that existed from the beginning that you can still utilize. So some of the features are around here, and the default is something that is new, that is released recently. Right, let's move on to the next slides, which is customizing and Odoo development. Obviously, this is a very large subject. I cannot explain this in a one presentation or a one webinar, but I'll talk about some of these introductory stuff that will help you understand the depth of Odoo, and it will help you develop understanding of Odoo. So let's get started. So I'll quickly jump to a documentation of Odoo. So I'll quickly talk about, obviously, tutorial of the Odoo. That is one of the most important thing that you should be learning. Sorry, my bad. References, server framework, and ORM API. Right. So Odoo is mainly a 3-tier application where Odoo framework is designed, is laid out in 3 different tier, which is a presentation layer, application layer, and the database layer. Database layer is where we have uh, PostgreSQL. PostgreSQL is the only supported database or RDBMS that we have that works with Odoo as of now. But obviously, and there is no future where we are planning to add more support. But for now, we are only focusing on PostgreSQL. On application server, we have a framework that is built in, which is built by Odoo. So it is framework that is built by Odoo, which is ORM based framework with MVC design pattern. It is a multi-tenant architecture. So that means on a one Odoo server, you are able to host more than one instances of Odoo. So Odoo is in a simple term, it's a multi-tenant three-tier architecture where more than one database or more than one instances of Odoo can be hosted on a single server. Another beauty of Odoo server is whatever solution that we provide on our platform, which is Odoo Online, which is Odoo SaaS or Odoo SH, it's exactly what you are getting on your platform as well. So if you were to host Odoo by yourself, then you are getting exactly same solution and you are not missing out anything outside of that. So that's the beauty of Odoo framework. Obviously, Odoo server-side framework is very robust in the sense that most of the business logic is written on the server side. So that means less security problems. Given that everything is processed on the server side, there's a less chances of security threats and security risk because all the logic is running on the server behind the web server. Alongside web framework, we also have something alongside server framework. We also have a web framework, which is a presentation layer of Odoo, and on the presentation layer of Odoo, we also have a website framework, which is a very elaborate framework. It is also known as OWL, Odoo Web Framework, which is a very popular framework of Odoo that has significantly got stronger in the recent years. Thanks to our web framework team for building an amazing framework that is scalable. If you were to compare Odoo framework, if you know like React.js, probably you will be very much comfortable to learning Odoo when you know React.js because it has similar ideas in one point in time. But again, Odoo framework is DOM based and different in the fashion, but concepts is something that you are able to relate. And same goes for the server framework. If you know Django, then Odoo framework will feel a little bit more comfortable because concepts are very much similar because they are MVC, they are three-tiered, and they have similar design pattern and works with the Postgres as well. So that's a little bit of background. Now, Odoo is a modular system. So that means you get a Odoo framework. So there's a framework of Odoo. And on top of Odoo, we have like 500 or 600 even more apps in version 19 now. Those are vertical apps and there are horizontal apps as well. So when I say vertical apps, these are like, let's say sales, and there's a bunch of sales which is built on top of sales. We'll call that as the vertical apps because this is sale vertical. And then there's inventory and bunch of app built on inventory. Similar to that, we have horizontal app, which is basically an app between sale and inventory. So when you want to sell something and you also want to use inventory of that, then the sell inventory app come into picture where sale and inventory feature will work together. So that's the horizontal. There's a vertical apps and there are horizontal apps. So Odoo is a modular mechanism. So that means you can install whatever app that's fit for your database. And luckily, Odoo pricing covers all the app that you have out of the box. So you just pay for users and that's all. And everything else is just any app that you like. And when you're customizing Odoo, what you are able to do is you are able to add your block horizontally or vertically anywhere in the ecosystem just by inheriting the module. And Odoo framework will let you do that. Everything that you see in Odoo is pretty much modifiable. You can change the behavior of Odoo very much as you prefer, as you like. That's obviously the beauty of the product and beauty of the framework itself that you are getting with the Odoo framework. Generally, when it comes to web framework, we do not encourage a lot of people to modify web framework because it does not have a high ROI. So if you're working with Odoo and if you ask us to make my Odoo pink or make my Odoo neon, we will say no because it has no value as such. Because you should be first focusing on your MVP. You should be focusing on what is valued most. And if you still have time and budget left, maybe we can think about all those features. But web framework is something that we don't modify that often, and we even don't recommend modifying it. But again, the framework is extendable, and you are able to inherit and you're able to modify component or add component very easily onto the framework as you like. Right? Let's move on. Unit test, this is something I talked about a little bit on SH. Unit testing is very much important. Most of the people ignore this. I highly recommend, in fact, I request anyone who is implementing Odoo to please write unit test cases, because this is most overlooked, and not enough attention is given to that. And we have unit testing both for the server side and the web side. So we have framework for unit testing on a server and web on a front end side as well. You must leverage that to make sure your project to set your project for the success. API and integrations. So Odoo comes with a built-in API, which is very elaborate. To tell you something in a very simple fashion, everything that you can do in the interface, you can pretty much do that on the API. That's the beauty of Odoo. Mostly what you see in the interface is connected to Odoo framework with a bunch of API calls. So if you want to build your own interface, you are pretty much able to do that. Obviously, there's a high cost associated to that, but if you wish, you can do that. So that means if you want to integrate system with some other system, you are pretty much able to do that, and Odoo can facilitate that out of the box. Also, in version 19, we released a new JSON 2 API. So that means now Odoo API lot more work like a REST API, and you are able to leverage a REST on Odoo very easily using a request. So for example, here's REST, my endpoint, my authorization, which is API bearer token. So you authorization bearer token API key, and you just pass your payload into a JSON data, and you're good to go. So these are all the parameters that generally you will pass to the method, will go into your JSON payload, and you're good to go. So now, starting version 19, obviously REST API is something that is part of Odoo ecosystem. Before we were RPC based, so we had JSON RPC and XML RPC. This is set to deprecated in 2026, just so that you know. So next year, this is set to removal, or it will replace JSON RPC, will completely replace that out of the box. So integration and API is out of the box available, and you are able to leverage them very easily. So obviously, those were the three main interests that we had from a community. I know that these are the last subject, and we haven't looked into much detail. Sorry, I need to still go into performance, but those are the last subject. I cannot cover every single detail, but this helps to get understanding of what is important, what should be paid attention to that. Performance optimization. This is another very large topic, requires its own separate time, but I want to briefly touch about some of the things that you could use that again is very helpful. One thing that I already talked about, which is in your production, you have something called monitoring. This is something I briefly talked about, so that is already available. Another tool that is available, which is your code profiler. So what is code profiler? Code profiler is a real-time recording of what is going on the server. So when I start a profiler, and if I connect to my instance, and anything that I do in my database, so for example, if I go to context, if I do something, if I navigate around, if I go to products, if I switch views, whatever that I do here is something that is being recorded right now as it happens. And when you're done, you come back and you say stop profiler. And this profiler now is a real-time recording of what happened. So for example, here, as you would see, some point in time, I click somewhere, for example, I clicked and a view to open certain model. So this is where, as you see, there is a view being called, and I open certain object, I made some compute field, I open some chatter. So all that is being recorded real time. Remember, every spike that you see here is representing each worker. So if you had a 5 worker, it is very likely that your profiler will show you 5 spike. Each spike is representing a worker that you are looking at to speak. So profiler is amazing tool and should be leveraged, and you should learn how to use that profiler. The second feature that is available to you is inbuilt profiler. So this is something, again, not very much used. So when you are in a developer mode, what you are able to do is you are able to start and profiler. So let's say I want to start profiler for 5 minutes, enable profiling. So that means anything and everything that I'm doing in my system is being recorded right now. So I'm going to project tab and I opened a project that was recorded. Let's see how that looks like. Sorry, obviously I should have enabled the profiler. I did not enable profiling, my bad. Once you enable profiling, this is, you have to go again, enable profiling. Now it's recording. So I'll go to context. I open a context. Obviously this dot shows the profiler is going on. I'll stop profiler. Then I can go here and I can look at my profilers. So let's say when I open a search of a partner, this is what my profiler look like, and this is a search. This is what a code stack of opening of a certain view look like. And how this is, you might ask, like, how this is useful, how can I leverage this? So when you say there's a performance problem in your database, you can do profiling, you can record all of that, and you can tell your developer to take a look at it. Or if there's a performance problem and if you file a ticket with Odoo and say, hey Odoo, there's a performance problem in my database, can you take a look at it? You can record your profiler and you can give that to us, and you will help us save time and understand what was wrong at the given point in time. So this is a great tool, not only just for your SH, but even if you are self-hosted, you can leverage that. So do that. How to read a log. This is another thing. Reading of a log is one of the significant things that most people don't understand. Odoo log has a lot of detail. Something that I will advise is look at the Odoo experience presentation on performance. There are like 3 presentations in last 3 years that goes in a very detail about logs and how you can leverage that. And the last subject is a profiler, which is when you are profiling, you are measuring mainly 2 things, CPU and memory. When you are using Odoo.sh, you have PySpy built in. So there's a built-in profiler. But if you are self-hosted, then what are the choices that you have? If you are self-hosted, obviously you have built-in profiler. You can install PySpy on your server. This is again an external tool. You do not need anything special. You just install a PySpy. You run a server out. You run a process outside of the server, and you are good to go. There is another tool called Memory. Memory is another tool that records the memory consumption of a process at a certain point in time. And another great thing to set up is a PG slow query. This is again available in Odoo.sh. If you are in Odoo.sh and if you go to log, in the log there is something called, obviously this is a new project, but if I had a project that is running long enough, I will have a file called PG slow queries that will tell me the slowest query that I'm running. Okay, so that's a little bit about performance. I know that I haven't covered everything in detail, but these are the starting point. If you know what are the right tools to use, you know what to do with them very quickly, because there's a lot of content available on this subject on YouTube of Odoo. So I would recommend going on YouTube of Odoo and checking those out for sure. All right, next let's go to the community questions that we received through the survey. So some of the community questions that we received, I'm going to go through them one by one. So here's the first question, which was how to create and use analytics in Odoo. It's pretty simple. Odoo actually comes with a lot of built-in tool that is at your disposal for reporting. So I would say for reporting, you don't need anything special. Reason being, any view of Odoo that you go, so for example, if I go to contact, pretty much all the view that you see on the interface is a reporting tool. So obviously this does not have a lot of data, but if I had a lot of data, that would have helped me obviously show you some statistics. But let me try to go to some events, for example, and then you have pivot. If you had a pivot view, then you are able to left and right measure data, and you're able to drill down. Once you have the data, you're able to insert them into spreadsheet. So a good example, maybe like, let me try to go to demo.odoo.com. So demo.odoo.com is a burner database. Once you open, you have a database, and once you are done with your database generally will be removed right away. So every single time you open a database, it's a brand new database to speak. So cells, and if I go to statistics, if I go to pivot view and you say, okay, I want to see my cells by sales rep, I want to see by order month, quarter, date, and I want to see all my data. Here's all your data. So this is your analytics. You're able to insert this into a spreadsheet in Odoo. Uh, and pretty much this is available across any object that you can imagine out of Odoo. Timesheets and timesheet statistics, graph views, any views that you are looking for. In the pivot, you're able to switch between different measures. So, for example, if I was in a sales reporting here, and if I were to, let's say, I want to measure my uh, recurring, monthly recurring, or I want taxes, or I want untaxed amount, all those statistics are right at your fingertips, and you're able to just use them whenever you like. And you are able to save them on the fly. You just save this and you will say, this is my filter. Save this. Next time you go in there, this is available right away. So yeah, you are able to use analytics, pivot, graph, Gantt view. Those are very much powerful tools at your fingertips that you are able to use. Next question. Odoo security and responses to the observation of beacon being sent out by software network security. So we do have active security team, and the security team does actively send out updates when there's a security breach found or anything found as such. We also have odoo.com/security page where you have all of the detail. But if you are in a partner, or if you are actively implementing project by yourself, then you will receive update about security patches time to time, and anything that we fix will be available to you right away. So we do have security team, and we do have beacons being sent out for sure. Right. Next up, what are the most important Postgres config parameter to adjust to get best performance out of Odoo in an on-prem installation? So this is a very elaborate subject. I'll try to detail as much as I can in the interest of time. So some of the parameter that you should be looking at is memory caching. Memory caching is something very important. So when it comes to memory caching, parameters like effective cache size, shared buffers, work memory, maintenance work memory, those are the four main parameters that you want to look at. Remember, out of the box, Postgres come with a 1 GB configuration, which is really bad for Odoo. So if you have out of the box Postgres, you are pretty much shooting yourself in the foot, to speak. So you definitely need optimization for Postgres when you do it by yourself, unless you are using like Amazon Aurora or Google Cloud SQL or something like that, because they are pre-optimized for you. Another settings is beyond workers. You also have val and cache checkpoint smoothing. So you want to look at the mean wall size and max wall size. Those are the 2 second other parameters that you want to look at. Then connection parallelism and SSD tweaks. This is something that you also want to look at. So when it comes to connections and parallelism, parameters like maximum connection, maximum worker processes, maximum parallel workers per gather is one of 4 important parameter. And the last and one of the most important one is auto vacuum one, which is always overlooked, because vacuum can basically inflate your database in a crazy fashion to the point that it is unusable. So auto vacuum parameter is something that you want to look at. Parameters like auto vacuum scale factor, auto vacuum analyze scale factor, auto vacuum maximum worker, auto vacuum cost limit, those are the parameters that you want to look at, because those parameters will help mitigate any vacuum problem that you might observe. So yeah, those are the parameters that I would advise looking at. I hope that helps you with something that you're experiencing. Next question: is there a reason why Odoo does not develop ability to allow customer to build a custom printable labels for manufacturing, inventory management, and shipping? So this is something that is out of the box. You have to sort of work with the studio. When you are in a studio, you are able to start a report with a blank page. So what you are able to do is you are able to define a page first. So before you define a report, you must go and define a paper size first. Once you have the paper size, you select that paper size for your report in Studio. Now, when you're working with the label, you might have to write some of the XMLs by hand. Reason being, layout can be a little bit finicky when you're arranging these labels. But this is something definitely you can work with the Studio, or a little bit of handwriting of the code, but you can definitely do that. And I have seen personally our quick start consultant creating a label for a customer using a studio. This is something that is very much doable. But if you have a very specific use case that we are not understanding, that could be a possible thing. Uh, but if you could comment to this video or something, maybe I can take a look at it in the future. Okay. Next question. Could Odoo handle running a franchise motorcycle shop? Definitely, Odoo does have franchise and branch and multi-company or intercompany mechanism. There's a great video on YouTube about that. You want to look for Odoo branches and companies on YouTube, and you will definitely find that video. But it is doable. You can definitely set up branches and branches with a multi-company or a child company with the intercompany rule will definitely solve the purpose. Right. Next question. What are the backup and disaster recovery options options on Odoo.sh, and how frequently backups are taken? What does the process of data restoration look like? So Odoo keeps 14 full backup of each production database on Odoo.sh for up to 3 months. One backup is kept up to 7 days. So 7 days. So there is a daily backup that is kept for 7 days. There's a weekly backup that is kept for 4 weeks, and there's a monthly backup kept for 3 months. So that accounts for 14 full backup. And these backups are kept across 3 different regional servers in the Odoo ecosystem. Production backups are done every 24 hours. So that is the maximum disaster disaster data loss possibility that you are looking at in that window. And recovery is pretty much simple. You just hit a restore button in the backup section of Odoo.sh. So it's pretty much you would go there and you will hit the recovery, that button. If you had a 14 backup, you'll see all backup. You'll hit this button and you will get a backup. Or if you want to download backup, you hit this button and you will get a backup. So it's pretty straightforward process. What are the monitoring tools available on Odoo.sh to track performance matrices, identify potential issues before they impact users? I already talked about the performance monitoring tools. One of the things that I will advise is understanding the log file. Based on the log file, you are able to adjust your hosting or your system for the future failures. But most important part is recording and analyzing. That's what I will advise. So Odoo.sh has monitoring plus logs, and on Odoo.sh you have log of a past 60 days available at your disposal at any point in time that you like. Right? Where is Odoo SaaS and Odoo.sh hosted? It is basically Odoo.gcp and OVH. It's in this combination. That's where it is hosted. Community question next is how development is protected. These two both questions are same. You will pretty much use the submodules, and one of the most important thing that I will advise, which is you don't have, or oftentimes partners do not include right license in their module. So I will strongly advise adding license to your module. If you are not adding license to your module, or if you are not including license file to your module, then you are making mistake. And so if it's a proprietary license, you want to include proprietary license. So I will strongly advise that. Next question: How can a client backup Odoo.sh and add it in Odoo with a local server, multi-server? It's pretty much simple. As I said, you download a backup, you start your server on your local, and you just restore a backup, and you're good to go. It's pretty much the same. Odoo.sh, Odoo running on Odoo.sh and Odoo running on your server is enterprise. It's pretty much same as long as it's deployed correctly. I'm assuming it's deployed correctly. So yeah, you just download a backup, restore backup, and you're good to go. There's nothing special. On a multi-server, however, it's a very complex thing that you need to understand. There is a presentation on that on YouTube that you can take a look, but it is pretty much doable. In fact, our CTO last year talked about this subject very detailed as well in a keynote of Odoo Experience last year. So go check it out. And another question, Odoo.sh hands-on, what are the key difference between Odoo.sh and AWS in terms of infrastructure? Well, Odoo.sh is Odoo manage Odoo. So that means all you do is just buy subscription, pay for this hosting, and you're good to go. Odoo takes care of the disaster recovery, backups, monitoring, hosting, fine-tuning your infrastructure, CI/CD, staging, development branch, run bot, all this is taken care by Odoo. When you are self-hosting this on AWS, all of that is your responsibility. So that's the major difference, that you need to have a skill set and you need to have right resources to be able to do that. As long as you have skill set and resources, you're good. Next question: are there any limitations customizing module versus adding third-party apps on Odoo.sh compared to on-premise deployment? No, it's pretty much the same. Adding a module is that's exactly what you are going to do on premise. It's pretty much same. There's nothing different. There's a difference between obviously using Studio and the module. When you are working with Odoo.sh, we strongly advise not to use a Studio, rather use module. So using a module is the same on Odoo.sh or a self-hosted. It's a one in the same thing. Those are not two different things, just so that you know. But Studio and development are two separate things. Right? And probably the last question for the day, which is what does amount of GB corresponds to in hosting, and what is it the maximum storage capacity they will have, and how do you know when you need more storage? So if you go to the settings of Odoo.sh, it self explains what does the storage means. So GB means a production database and 3 backup and all the backup of the staging. So that accumulates to total storage of whatever you have. Is there a maximum capacity? Yes, SH has a maximum capacity in the storage. I think when you are doing with a dedicated, it's a 4 terabyte, which is a lot of data. And if you need something more than 4 terabyte, then obviously there is something that needs to be addressed, and we need to take a look at it, because 4 terabyte is a lot of amount of data. Given that Odoo does not store binary data into file store. And how do you know when you need more GB? Well, you do not need to worry about Odoo.sh because Odoo.sh, based on your usage, it automatically allocates storage on the fly. So you do not need to worry about that, right? So those were all the questions that we received from a community. I hope that helped you answer the questions that you had. And I enjoyed answering those questions. I wish I had more time to attend more questions, but in the interest of time, we will stop here. Thank you for your time today and enjoy using Odoo. Have a good day. Bye-bye.